Pleased to kick off this part of the show by speaking to Paula Swain. She is a certified financial planner with the Financial Center for Women located in Southfield. She joins us now on the MegaCast. Paula, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So you're a certified financial planner, and you have extensive training and experience with helping people plan for their financial future, but you also specialize in helping women plan for their financial future, particularly women who are recently divorced or recently widowed. How do those two situations play into financial planning differently from general financial planning, particularly for women?
Well, it's kind of different for women because we tend to maybe be out of the workforce, especially if we were married and had children. You know, we might be out of the workforce raising our kids for a while, or taking care of a parent if they happen to become ill. And it's sad to say, but sometimes women make less. We hope that eventually will change than what a male will make. I mean, so we have some things that we need to overcome. And then to throw in being widowed or divorced on top of that can be very stressful.
We're joined by Paula Swain. She is a certified financial planner and is with the Financial Center for Women located in Southfield. And so you mentioned women leaving the workforce in many situations for familial reasons or otherwise. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen that the numbers are there to show that women en masse have left the workforce during the pandemic to help, in many cases, take care of their families or other obligations that they couldn't take care of because of the constraints of work and the constraints of life during the pandemic. How has that changed your discussions with your clients and with women that you're consulting with, and what they need to do to continue their financial planning while they're not in the workforce and while other constraints are in place where there's no foreseeable end to those variables?
It's a tough discussion. It's funny, my mom asked me the same thing. She was watching something I did the other day, and she goes, well, what if you get a divorce and you don't have employment? I guess, you're going to have to go find employment. I mean, we know everywhere that people are struggling to hire people. So it may be, depending on getting your family to watch your kids so that you can, go work at a restaurant in the evenings, or if you're married, maybe your husband is still working. I mean, it's really difficult to get through this COVID period for most people, but there are options out there if you just, maybe have to step outside of the box a little bit and change careers, or, take something down just to get you through until you can get back on your feet.
We're joined by Paula Swain. She's a certified financial planner and is with the Financial Center for Women in Southfield. And as difficult as it might be to even consider a situation like this or these kinds of situations, should women be financially planning for situations where there is a potential that they could get divorced in the future, or there is a potential that a tragedy could happen in their family, and all of a sudden they are widowed and have to continue to build their financial future, prepare themselves for retirement, take care of their family, and so on without their spouse? Should they be planning for those kinds of disaster situations, even if it's just preliminary plans or just in case, this is where the first steps that I would take?
Sure. It doesn't necessarily go just for women. Everybody should be planning, because that can happen to men just as well as women. Right. So what we want to do is to make sure that we have, 3 to 6 months of income to cover your expenses if you were to lose your employment. I also kind of take that a little step further and say, if you're in a position that would take you probably a year maybe to find a replacement job at your same income, then maybe you need to have an emergency account that lasts you for a year. The more cash that you can have on hand to protect yourself in these situations. And, if you're looking at divorce, there's really no way to prepare for divorce. I mean, when it just kind of happens. I know it just kind of happened for me a few years ago. So I just know that it's usually an unexpected thing. And so is becoming a widow. But there are some things that you can have in place. Like when we run financial plans, we run, for couples, we run them as if the spouse was going to die tomorrow. And how does that look? Are you going to have enough money? Are you going to be okay? And if you're not, then how do we prepare you for when that does happen? And you can do the same thing, okay, you're going to lose your job tomorrow. Let's see what that looks like. The key to all of this is just sitting down and talking to someone and having a plan in place. If you don't have a plan, then you're going to wake up and something like it's going to happen and you're just going to be scrambling because you don't know what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so following up with that, where should people start? Obviously, you said sitting down with an expert, with someone like yourself, a certified financial planner, is a great first step. But even beyond that, before you're going to a financial planner or after your initial meeting with a financial planner, what are those first steps that people should take to begin to make that plan for their financial future and take into account these worst-case scenario, disaster scenarios?
Well, the key to starting any type of plan is knowing where your money is. Like, it's the worst case scenario to be in is living paycheck to paycheck. So you got to kind of figure out a way to not live paycheck to paycheck. And I know that's difficult. It's difficult for a lot of people to overcome that. But, I was talking to someone yesterday, I'm like, even if you can start by putting away $10 a week, and before you know that, that's all going to add up. Then you add in compounding and so those things. So you got to know where your money is first and foremost. And it could be something as like paper and pen. Sit down, write down where your expenses are, write down what your income is. And hopefully you have some discretionary income that you can do some savings and stuff with. And if you have more going out than you have coming in, then you really got to take a serious look at where you're at. Because if you do end up in a tragedy like a divorce or being widowed, you have to know that you're going to be okay and that you have enough income coming in versus what's going out. It seems so simple, but it seems to be difficult for most people to live on a budget. And then things that people won't do is talk about money. They're embarrassed. Nobody wants to admit that they think that they haven't saved enough, or they haven't done the right things, or they haven't put it in the right investments, and they're afraid. They're afraid that they're going to come and talk to me or even their family members or friends, and they're going to be embarrassed that, Joe might have saved $1 million for his retirement, and I've only got 250. And so I don't want to talk about it because I'm embarrassed. But if you can get over that embarrassment and talk to somebody and get yourself a plan, then you can make a decision on how to go forward with your life.
And everybody's situation is going to be different. One person working one job is going to be different than someone else that's working several jobs or has experienced job loss during the pandemic or some other financial hit, whether it be a significant medical expense or this, that, or the other, something with their home as a result of the storms. Everybody's financial situation is going to be different. Everybody's financial planning process and ultimately the plan that they put in place is also going to be different because we're all living very different lives. But there are those basic steps that people can take. There are those basic considerations. You typically discuss the ABCs, as you call it, of preparing for retirement. What are those ABCs and what should people be focusing on?
Well, I think you're referencing an article, and I'm trying to go back into my head to remember what that article talked about. But, just off the top of my head, I would say that, again, live on a budget. Number 2, save in your retirement account, preferably if you can, into a Roth and then your 401k. Make sure you max out your 401k to at least your employer's match. Some people give free money away by not even putting enough in so that they're to the match of their employer. So you want to make sure that you do that. You want to sit down every year and look at where you are and what your goal is, and are you on track? If you're not, how do you tweak it? Do we need to make changes? But I want to go back to one thing that you said, because I did say that somebody saved $1 million and someone had 250. I have clients that have retired on 250,000 and lived a very great life. And then I have clients that have retired on $1 million and lived a very good life. And then somewhere in between. So everybody's situation is different, but you need to know what those numbers are. You need to sit down and figure out what you need to survive.
Yeah, and we're not all financial planners. We're not all experts in these fields. There are experts like yourself and others that people can go to and regularly do go to for this kind of consultation. But like you said, it's going to be different for everybody. If someone's retiring on $250,000 in savings, that can be attainable for one person versus another, or for really anybody if they're planning correctly and they have a budget in place that makes their lifestyle fit into a financial plan of that kind. So that brings me to a topic that is hotly debated and talked about a lot in terms of educating younger people, whether it be at school-age children or just young adults that are beginning their independent lives. What should parents be doing and families be doing to help teach their children or fill in the gaps with their children that are not taken care of by the school systems in terms of learning to put together a rock solid budget or a proper budget for whatever lifestyle they are living, and to begin financial planning as early as possible? Because like you said, the earlier that you the earlier that you do begin these plans, the more effective they may be down the line as you compound more and more of those savings over the course of time.
Well, if you give your kid an allowance, so you maybe he wants to save for, a Nintendo. I'm not even sure what those things are. Nintendo, whatever the new Nintendo is.
Sure.
So they do chores around the house and they get an allowance. So you teach them how to save a portion, put 10% in your savings for your Nintendo or whatever it is that you need, and teach them how money works. I wish they would teach it in high school. I mean, I think that's a great place. And even starting as much as even maybe at a 7-10-year-old, just what is money? Most people don't understand money. They don't know what a CD is. They don't even know what a bank or a checking account is at that age. And open all those accounts for your kids. And then as they start to work, when they start having, W-2 income, get them to maybe contribute to a portion to a Roth IRA. If you start contributing young based on compounding, you could have a ton of money at retirement, and then it's, again, talk to your kids. There's an app I just seen on TV, and I wish I could think of the name of it. But it's like a savings app, and I can see it, but I can't think of the name of it. I wish I knew, but I've been seeing the commercials on it on TV, but it's talking about how to teach your kids about money. And then there's a lot of programs out there, especially in April. There's always Money Week, and so there's programs that you can go and take your kids to learn about money. So there are options, but if you don't understand money yourself, then it's really hard to teach somebody else about it.
And there's so many resources to learn the ins and outs of financial planning, about managing your money, whether it be consulting with an expert or consulting with other free resources, and of course doing additional research and asking additional questions to people that are in the know, so that you can check that information that you're receiving from places like a YouTube tutorial or articles that you're reading on a number of different pages today. We're joined by Paula Swain, a certified financial planner, and she's also with the Financial Center for Women in Southfield. And Paula, how does the pandemic play into financial planning and investment goals? Because certainly on one hand, people that have made the right investments pre-pandemic and have moved their money around properly or luckily during the pandemic may have been doing fine, but in other cases that volatility is there that can make people a lot more hesitant to move their money or to invest here and there, not knowing what's going on in the future and when we'll be out of this. But also there's a lot of new financial constraints that have come into play as people's lives have been changed and put on edge by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, investment-wise, the market's done really well over the last few years. So hopefully when the pandemic did hit in March of 2020, that you didn't pull out of the market, that you hung in there because you were rewarded for staying in. You don't want to make emotional decisions when it comes to the market. You want to make logical decisions, and sometimes that's difficult because you're like, oh my God, my life savings is, I see it dropping 30%. But just know that, historically, being politically correct there, historically it does come back. But I always look at it, if you're afraid to lose money, then it shouldn't be in the market. If you need it today, it shouldn't be in the market. if you've lost your job or you're lost income due to the pandemic's been an opportunity to kind of waken up to see where your money's going, to kind of get a grip. So I know that I kind of look at my things a little bit different personally because we've gone through the pandemic, and looked at my savings goals, and sometimes I had to cut back a little bit on savings so that I could get through a period of time while the pandemic was going on. And you might have to do that, but you can regroup down the road. But again, it really just goes in understanding where your money is and having a plan of action. So like I use the software where my clients, we put all their assets into the software, we put their goals in there. And on a daily basis, it gives you an idea if you're on track, not on track, how the pandemic would have affected you at that moment. And then, when it recouped, how you were back on track. I mean, it's kind of just having some ideas. And there's free software out there. Don't ask me to name any because I don't know any, but there are free software out there that you can use. But just having conversations with people and being open to have that discussion about money will help out a lot. I mean, I remember sitting in my driveway when the pandemic was going on with our neighbors, and we were all talking about money because the stimulus was coming in, and who got it, who didn't get it, what were you going to do with it, did you appreciate it or not appreciate it? So we started to open up those conversations, and then you start to learn yourself, and then maybe you can educate others.
We're joined by Paula Swain. She's a certified financial planner and is also with the Financial Center for Women, which is located out of Southfield, joining us today on the MegaCast. And in terms of reevaluating your financial situation or doing an overview of your assets, how often should people be reevaluating that financial situation? Because on one hand, it's easy to say, well, I'll reevaluate it every few months, or it's easy to say, well, I'll reevaluate it when I need to reevaluate, but by then it can be too late. So what do you suggest in terms of when people should be going through that overview, making changes as needed, making adjustments as needed? How often should that happen?
At least once a year. And then definitely if you're going through a major event, which could be the birth of a child, marriage, divorce, widowed, but at least once a year. And the best time, I think, to do that is why not do it on your birthday? At least you'll remember to do it, and then take a look at where you're at and see if things need to be adjusted.
Yeah, people are always making goals at the beginning of a new year, a new calendar year, making goals on their birthday. It's a common time to set those goals, and why not set some financial goals as well?
Correct.
We're joined by Paula Swain, certified financial planner, and she's also with the Financial Center for Women located in Southfield. Paula, just another minute or two with you today before we'll say goodbye. Any other lasting advice at this point in time for people as they're planning their financial future, as they're navigating their money during this pandemic, or any other important information that we should know today?
I think, and it's difficult, but when you're going through a lot of things, what we've gone through the pandemic has been a lot emotionally. But when you think about your money, you have to think logically and not emotionally, and not make rash decisions. And if it comes to a point where you need a decision and you're not sure what to do, reach out to someone that you feel that you can get good advice from. It could be a friend or a parent or a professional like myself. Just do those things. There are people out there to help you. Just reach out for help, and just don't be embarrassed. Everybody's made mistakes. I'm sure I've made plenty of them. But when you ask for help, you can sometimes have a better outcome.
And it's always good to consult with experts and things that you're not entirely certain about, or you haven't done your own research and been able to feel comfortable about asking people questions and learning in process. You learn by doing, and this
Correct.
is certainly one of those things. Paula, we appreciate your time. Thank you for your insight and answering what I'm sure a lot of people's questions about their financial future, especially now during these uncertain financial times due to the ongoing and continuing to be ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Tyler.